Good morning, everybody. My name is Shannon, and welcome to King Family Farm, and welcome to my office. So this morning, I put my kids on the bus, and I fed my animals, and I had to plow again because we got some freezing rain and ice pellets, and we got a couple inches of that, and it makes our driveway like driving through sand, and so we had to get rid of that so my husband can get back home after work. So my husband works off farm, and he needs to be able to, he could get out this morning because we're on a hill, so he could get out and go down the hill, but he can't get home. So I had to do that. And normally when I'm done all that stuff, I come inside, have coffee, and I work my way through some social media, see what's going on, and see where people are at. And people are angry. People are really angry at the price of food. And I completely understand that. We have ourselves, now we raise a lot of food here. We raise a significant portion of our food. And we still feel the pinch at the grocery store. We don't have dairy animals here. So here milk is $8.09, $8.10 per 4 liters, which is like a gallon jug. It's a little more than a gallon. Cheese is gone way up. Those are the products we usually buy. We buy some fresh veg in the winter that I would like to have every once in a while. But those things have kind of become overly priced to the point where we just choose not to afford them. Do I think that they're priced fairly? Having been the trucker that brings produce from California in January, and knowing how much it costs to put fuel in my truck 10 years ago, I'm actually of the opinion that $4 or $5 for a head of romaine coming from California is probably not a stretch. I know it's expensive. I know it's more than we're used to paying. But by the time you put the fuel prices on, the truck driver himself, herself getting paid, and believe me, truck wages have been stagnant for years. Driver wages do not go anywhere. I'm inclined to think that that's not a terrible price. I'm also inclined to think that eating lettuce in January is probably, when you live where we do, which is in northern New Brunswick, lettuce in January is just, you don't eat salad in January. Who wants to eat cold food in January? Every once in a while, I want a sandwich with something crunchy on it, and I might do a video on how we solve that problem, which is with sprouts. So I sprout seeds, lentils, radish, broccoli, alfalfa. I sprout those on my kitchen window, and that's how we get that lettucey crunch in a sandwich without paying so much for lettuce. I'm not a huge fan of hydroponic lettuce, which we could grow in the house. It just doesn't taste as good as lettuce grown in the soil. So the one item that is just really blowing people's minds is the price of eggs. And being a person who we have somewhere around 100. We have 5 now. We have around 100 chickens. Now I do have I have 3 roosters right now, and we're getting ready to hatch some chicks. So I'll cull out the older roosters, and I'll probably, for fertility reasons, we will cull out the older roosters and save some of the juvenile roosters. And we'll be hatching Easter eggers. That's what I'm looking for this year. So we raise a mixed flock of commercial sex links, Easter eggers. I have some black copper morans that I picked up. I also have turkeys and ducks, and they all eat a lot. So, and because it's winter, they eat significantly more than they would eat in the summer. Partly because in the summer they don't need the extra energy to stay warm, and partly because in the summer they're out in chicken tractors, moving around on pasture, and so they eat about 30% less because they have access to all the bugs and that type of stuff. So people are shocked at how much eggs cost. Now, I remember when my husband and I first got together 8 years ago, we would wait for the sale flyer on a Saturday from Shoppers, and we would get the $1.88 eggs because that's what they came on. They came on sale for on Saturday and Sunday, $1.88. Not thinking a whole lot about how much it actually costs to produce them. $1.88 eggs, as far as I'm concerned, now as someone who raises chickens, $1.88 eggs are a loss leader. They're not making any money on those. And I don't think Farmer is either. I need coffee. It feels good after being outside plowing. So then in 2019, I told my husband we should get some chicks. It would be kind of fun. You know, the kids will love it. We'll just get 15. We'll end up with, like 6 hens or so. The roosters will call. It'll be great. Now we have 100 hens. Chicken math is a real thing. So I do not want to discourage anybody from getting chickens, following their dreams, producing their own food, building on that self-sustainability, because we did that, and I think it's wonderful, and I love my chickens. They're so much fun. They're really entertaining. If you can have roosters where you are, you can reproduce your own flock. Okay, sorry about that. That was doctor's offices canceling appointments, and when the phone rings, it really messes with the phone. So I topped up my coffee, and back to chickens. So if you have roosters, you can, of course, increase your flock size. You can reproduce the hens you just need. Like if you want to keep a flock of 10, you can do that, and you can continue that flock indefinitely, really, occasionally bringing in new blood. So that kind of leads into things that I would like you to think about before you just dive right in. Because, I do that. I was like, we're getting chickens, and we were all in. Like, all in. And that summer, we actually ended up scrambling to get meat chickens as well, and as a tester. And now we raise meat birds for other people, and we have a ridiculous number of chickens. There's poultry everywhere, and for us it's fabulous. But if you're living in town, so there's a couple of things. If you're living in town, one of the reasons I don't live in town is I can do what I want out here. But if you live in town, the closest town to me does not allow chickens, and they changed that rule in the spring of 2020. Now, so you need to check your local regulations. Some towns allow you to have a limited number of chickens, which often is around 4 to 6 hens, and no roosters. And I know people are like, well, I want to have a rooster. I should be allowed to have a rooster. Let me tell you about those roosters. My roosters start crowing at 3 a.m. And I don't normally hear them, but every once in a while, they wake me up at 3 in the morning. Your neighbors don't want to be woke up at 3 a.m. And that's why they don't allow roosters. It has nothing to do with preventing you from producing your own flock. It literally has to do with noise. Just as much as a dog is annoying barking at 3 a.m. Pardon me. Nobody wants to listen to a rooster crowing at 3 a.m. And they don't just crow in the morning. They crow all day. They crow because the sun is up. They crow because something disturbed them. They crow just to make themselves look pretty for the ladies. So they're noisy. So you really need to check out the rules where you live. And if chickens are really important to you, then maybe you need to reconsider where you live. And I'm sure plenty of people are trying to move to the country, and I get that. So that's one of the things you need to consider. You also need to consider how much space you have for them. In a barn situation, the recommended space is 4 square feet per bird. And I don't think that's enough, especially with right now. For us, our chickens can't get outside. There's like 18 inches of snow, and they're too dainty to walk on that. Now, if you live in the South, if you live, you know, pardon me, you live in like the Carolinas, Georgia, you don't get snow. I mean, if you do, it's like the apocalypse, but you don't really get snow. So you've got, somewhere grass all year round, and you've got ranging abilities for them. Even if you've got them in a chicken tractor, you can move them around and they get more space that way. So you really need to consider the amount of space that you have for them. You also want to consider predator proofing. Here we have foxes, we have coyotes, we have the hugest raccoons I've ever seen. Like 30-pound raccoons are massive. And they will decimate your flock while you sleep. And then what? Where are you? You then need to either replace your hens, or you give up. Most of us just replace. But it's important to understand that that's the cost of livestock. And chicken wire isn't going to cut it. It does not. It keeps chickens in. It doesn't keep predators out. Hardware cloth is significantly more expensive, but it's necessary. What else? Here, one of the things you also need to consider is where you're going to put them in the winter. We run our chickens in what essentially is a pretty flimsy chicken tractor in the summer. Flimsy enough that we got a very severe storm this summer, and I've never seen it happen before or since. But one gust of wind flipped my turkey shelter, and I was standing right beside it when it went, and I was like, oh, well, that's fabulous. So I had to put a little extra weight on it, but I mean, and it hasn't happened since, but those turkey shelters and my chicken tractors are not really that heavy. And because they're not that heavy, they're easy enough for me to move by hand, which is really important because I don't want to disturb my animals with the four-wheeler or a truck or something like that, a tractor. You need to be able to move it by yourself, or at least I do. My husband, because he works off farm, it's my job. And I'm happy with that, and that's fine. That's our deal, but it's my job. So where are you going to keep them in the winter? We move all our chickens inside for the winter. I don't have them out in chicken tractors. Our chicken tractors are buried right now. The barn is full of chickens, and things get completely rearranged for the winter so that we can move these animals inside for the winter, and that's fine. Now my ducks, they're still outside because they're really hardy. And they don't really care if they get wet, but they still have a shelter. But ducks are a much hardier fowl than chickens. Then you need to look at your feed costs. Feed here, now we're in Canada, so our prices are a little higher to start with. And right now, my feed cost hasn't gone up in the last year, but I have a feeling when we start moving into the crop that was harvested this fall, I'm about to go to the feed store, and I'm curious to see what the price of laying feed has gone up to. Right now, it's about, we pay about $22. I mean, I buy it by the ton, so the metric ton, which is 2,200 pounds. So I pay less than this, but if you were going to buy it by the bag price is $22. And a bag here is 25 kilograms or 55 pounds. And that runs $22. You can go all the way up to $35 for organic feed. So those are like some very minimum costs. And then you've got your waterers, your feeders. It's winter here, so I have multiple feeders and I change them out a couple of times a day because they freeze. And plastic inevitably cracks. And let me tell you about the metal ones. They warp and they don't work great either. You can get heated waterers. But to me, they're really expensive and they have a very short life for that cost. And it doesn't really, I don't like having water standing around all night. So I pull my waterers anyways. So I just don't bother with that. At the end of the day, you really need to, I want people to do this. I want people to have chickens or get chickens because it is the best thing for them. And you need to do that. You need to do what's best for you, for your family, for your household, for your farm. And, no matter what I say here, that's the most important thing is you need to do what is best for you. And for us, raising chickens is a good thing. And we enjoy that. But they cost more than people think. So here's the thing. We have a lot of commercial sex links. We pick them up from the co-op. And there's another place that we pick up some of our birds from. And we pick them up as 18-week pullets because if I bring in chicks, they are going to be 20 weeks of being fed and cared for, and they give me nothing. And at the end of the day, I'm running a business. And so I need to be profitable. But even as a backyarder, you need to be aware that if you get chicks, they're going to be, as a sex link, they're going to be minimum 20 weeks before they give you eggs. You're going to feed them for 20 weeks. If you get pullets, which are already 20 weeks old, a pullet is a female chicken that's under the age of 1, and she will give you eggs. Now, they will, in their first year, lay eggs through the winter. Not as many, but they're pretty good. They will give you a good, successful amount of eggs. The problem comes in your second season. So chickens generally molt at 18 months old for the first time. And then they molt every fall. They molt annually after that. And molting means they basically lose all their feathers and they grow new feathers. And while they're doing that, they don't lay because the same nutrients that goes to laying eggs goes to growing feathers. And they have a habit of losing their feathers in September, just as the weather's getting cold, because everybody wants to be outside in the cold with no clothes on. But that's what they do. And so they don't really lay during that period. And then the days start getting really short, right? Going into October, November, December. And chickens need 14 hours of daylight to lay you some eggs. So you're going to have September, October, November, December. You've got almost 4 months, particularly here. You get about 4 months where they're not laying a thing. So we have, in my one barn, I have pullets that they haven't done their first molt yet because this is their first year. They will molt in the fall. And then my other barn, that has 2-year-olds. And they didn't lay me a thing. Like maybe 2 eggs. We're talking 30 hens in that one pen. And they laid me 2-3 eggs a day. Maybe for about 3 months. So commercially, most poultry houses call out their older birds because they don't lay as much and it's not profitable. We don't cycle them out as fast because we love the larger eggs that the older girls lay. So we don't cycle them out as fast, but we still cycle them out and we process them out. I process them and they hit the stew pot. You need to think about, are you going to, and there's plenty of people do this. Now I have some girls that are I have 2 hens left from my original group and they're still laying. but they don't lay a whole lot. And I keep them because I'm kind of attached to them. But economically, they're not worth keeping. So they just look nice. So that's why we keep them around. So you've got your four laying hens that you've picked up. And in their second year, they're going to molt. They're not going to lay. And you still have to feed them. And you still have to house them. And you don't have any eggs. So the question is, what are you going to do? And chickens are born with as many eggs as they're ever going to lay. They're like humans, okay? So you have as many eggs as you're ever going to have. You don't continue to produce more. And when you're done with your eggs, when the chicken is done laying, she's done. That's it. She's only got so many eggs. So you can provide supplemental light to force your hens to lay through the winter after they've molted, of course. But you're just going to have to call them out sooner. Or you're going to have to tolerate keeping chickens around that you have to feed, but they don't lay. And you need a plan for that. And we've had that issue here where people dump birds they don't want. Anonymously. They leave them in a box at my farm stand. And I personally think that's disgusting. But it happens. And I beg you to come up with a better plan. I really do. I mean, it's just cruel. It really is. I mean, it risks my flock, first of all, because I don't know where your chickens are coming from. But it's just cruel to just dump them. I mean, it's like getting a puppy for Christmas, and by Valentine's Day you've had enough and you put it in the shelter. You know, that's just, you can't do that. So I do not do supplemental light in my barns. We let the girls rest. I don't have as much of a market in the winter for eggs either, so it's kind of it's not really an issue for us. And because we have so many, now I want you to understand though, we are feeding about 100 birds here. And right now, because it's winter, they're giving me like 4 dozen eggs a day. That's it. There's no money in that. It's not cheaper. So does it equal out? Yes, it does. For us, it equals out because of, you know, we have the economies of scale, and that works for us. But one of the things that is important to us is raising quality food. And it was all about, from the very beginning for us, it was always about putting good food on the table and knowing where it comes from. And I think if that's what you're looking to do, go for it. Do it. You know, get yourself some, go to the co-op or wherever, you know, go find your neighborhood chicken lady and see if she'll sell you some pullets, and rather than chicks, because if I sell you chicks, they're straight run. I don't sex them. And half of them are going to be roosters, and you need to have a plan to deal with those roosters because you only need one rooster for every 12 hens. So that's, you know, I really want people to plan for this. So do I think you should go out and get chickens? The short answer is no. No, I don't. I think that it requires a lot more thought and planning. Do I think you should have chickens? I think everybody should have chickens. They're fabulous. I really do. I think they're fantastic for kids. You can feed them some table scraps. I mean, they're just they're a gateway animal to farming. But I think it's really important to understand that it's probably initially, at the very least, and my dad will tell you this too, because his wife, they got chickens a few years ago, and I'm sure those chickens are so spoiled they haven't paid for themselves, but they provide more than eggs. Their entertainment, their care, their his are pets. Now mine are for the most part treated like pets, but they're livestock. And we don't generally name them. We have a couple that we've named because they've been around so long. But I just want you to think about it. I want you to understand what it truly costs to raise chickens, and maybe be a little less shocked at the grocery store at the cost of eggs, or your crazy chicken lady down the road. If she is selling you eggs for $2 or $3 a dozen, please give her some more money, please, because she's giving them away. She's not even paying for their feed on that, and you want her to keep selling you eggs. With the cost of feed and the cost of supplies and the unavailability of veterinary care, people are going to downsize their flock, and you want to be on the list of customers. So if you have a chicken lady and you have the ability to buy eggs from her, I would continue to do that while I researched the true costs of raising my own. So I hope I haven't angered anybody, because that's certainly not my intention. I hope that I have convinced people that poultry is fabulous. We love having them. But that there are costs that I think people don't see. And quite frankly, eggs are still a fairly inexpensive food source. They really are. They're cheaper than beef. They're cheaper than buying pasture-raised chicken. So I hope this helps. I hope I haven't scared people off. And I've got some work to do in the house today, so I'm glad you stopped by for this conversation. I hope I've actually encouraged some people to jump into it. Just jump in with your eyes open. So thanks for joining me here today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you here next time on the farm.